Thank you very much. We will now be starting with the last session, which is focused on presenting the case studies and success stories of EU SMEs that have already accessed the market, or also focusing on how can BSOs support EU enterprises that want to enter the Chinese market or expand in the Chinese market. This session will be focused on three keynote speeches, followed by a panel discussion moderated by Alessio Pettino, our business advisor. The three speakers will be René Bos from RAI Amsterdam and Aquatech China, Roland Brouwer from BIPO, and Timo Heloso from the Finland-China Business Association. Without further ado, I would like to start with the presentations and give the floor to René Bos for the first presentation on the topic. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everybody. This morning, still in Brussels, and good afternoon, ni hao in China for the online audience, wherever you are in the world. I think there's been a programming mistake here because I see that the topic is EU SMEs in China, case studies and success stories. Oops. Well, we need to see about that one. I can share a few practical experiences, but whether our story in China is or will be a success story, well, time will tell, honestly. And I think the audience has been well warmed up to all the caution that has been given in the excellent presentations yesterday and today. Very high level, highly intellectual, very useful. So I encourage everybody to take very good note of that, because every time I nodded like, yeah, we should have known this. Yeah, we should have known this. But then again, never too old to learn, although I hope. So let me try to click on the next slide. So yeah, so the title, Doing Business in China, Pitfalls, Tips and Tricks. And especially lots of pitfalls I'll have to share with you. Let me quickly explain a bit as a bit of background, not so much to make promotion for my company. What it is, what we do. I'm from RAI in Amsterdam. That's an exhibition company, and we organize exhibitions in these buildings that you see here in Amsterdam. All Dutch people know RAI. It's a household name. We've been around for 125 years, I believe. I wasn't there at the time, although you may think so, but I wasn't. I've actually only joined a few months ago, coming from a business-to-business background and having a little bit of of China experience. And now in RAI, I'm called the China boss. My name is Boss. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Oh. Technical interruption.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're back. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
All right. Okay. I don't know what happened, but something with the camera, I guess. Wave to the camera. So you recognize the guy, that's me. And one of my roles in China, in RAI Amsterdam, is directing one of our largest exhibitions in China, and it's called Aquatech. But I will not get into detail about that. It's about water treatment technology. We do those exhibitions in Amsterdam after 2 weeks. I invite you all to come. In Mexico and also in China, already for many moons. I'm holding up the C here. It's not the C for copyright, because then it would definitely not be a success story to share. Simon, we have some issues there, I can tell you, but it's the C for China. Okay, this is where we are. Where's my office? It's over here. It's for Dutch standards, a fairly big exhibition area. Although when you've been to the Frankfurter Messe or in Shanghai, to a couple of those enormously big halls, they're bigger than the whole of Amsterdam. It dwarfs us. But still, we're doing okay. Like I said, 125 years ago, we started as a bicycle and automobile exhibition company, and it grew out to a lot more than that. Currently, RAI in total has about 500 employees. So I don't know in what definition of SME we fall, but I guess a little bit on the top end of SME. And what we do as RAI is we allow everybody who has some kind of exhibition or conference to rent our space in Amsterdam, basically. And we help decorating that and all that. But also, what not many people know is we organize our own exhibitions because we think there's business in it. And one of them is like Aquatech that I just mentioned. But we also organize exhibitions in traffic technology. I'm not going to read out the whole line. In smart mobility, in remanufacturing, all kinds of business areas where we think there's business for us to organize an exhibition and to bring people together, suppliers and sellers, I mean buyers. So we do this in Holland, obviously, where we're from, but we do it all around the world. And my apologies for this slide. I don't know why Turkey is there and Indonesia. We are active there, but I don't know why those 4 countries. Obviously in Holland. We do quite a few exhibitions in Mexico as well. And of course, China, where we do about 10 of our own titles every year. So we have a fairly active presence in China. I wouldn't say successful yet, but anyway. So in Shanghai, that's where our office is, because many of the trade shows that we're involved with, either directly or indirectly, are in Shanghai. So it makes sense to go to Shanghai. And this is part of our team that just moved to another bigger office. Somebody mentioned about the rents. Well, yeah, not cheap. Don't go to China because you think it's cheap. It's very expensive. Everything is expensive. So that's the first tip. Don't think it's cheap. And it will cost you a lot. And it will take you a lot of time, but more about that later. So we are active around the world. We have this office in China dedicated. It's a wholly owned foreign enterprise, WOFI, I think you call it. So it's entirely our own. It's called RAI China, although in the Chinese name, it sounds a bit different, of course. Tip from Simon, make sure when you register your IP, do it in English, but also in Chinese. You should have told us a few years ago, Simon. Because you think you have covered everything in your contract, and then the Chinese counterpart just says, yeah, but in Chinese it sounds very different, so it doesn't apply. Call up the lawyer. Yeah, he's right. So what can you do? About 35 staff now. So coming back to Bernardo's comments, Bernardo, he's there. I thought you run away. That's a risk, being in China and employing 35 people, on the payroll every month, whether they perform or not. Actually, one of us had to leave this morning, a bit sad, but okay. So that's a risk, but also there are some risks in partnerships, and I'll get into that a bit later on. Based in Shanghai, and all staff and management is local as well. So we don't have any permanent expat presence there, which is a choice because we want to localize. And, we think China is not like it was 30 years ago. So there's many talented people, experienced people with the right education, the right experience, and the right language skills to pick this up. So that's the choice we've made. Like I mentioned, it has changed a lot. The first time I went, I'm not such a big China veteran. I think the first time I went to China was in 1996. So it's some time ago, but some of you, I noticed today and yesterday, have known China much longer and know it much better. Although I think for almost everybody who is non-Chinese here, we will all admit that we know China just a little bit. No matter how long you're there, we'll never fully understand it. And bear that in mind. It is every day there's surprises, often pleasant surprises, but sometimes not so pleasant surprises. It's a big market, and it was shown this morning in the slide, all the reasons why companies go to China, a big market, and it's cheap, and we get rich quickly, and everybody. well, it's all not true, as was mentioned. China is a hugely competitive market. And while we made the choice, we are committed, more about that later. Definitely, if you're not in China yet, go there, have a look, but also consider other huge markets. For instance, Indonesia, I think 800 million people. India, different market, or wherever, Thailand, where perhaps competition is less fierce and government regulation is a bit more, let's say, less disadvantageous as it may be in China. But now I'm getting ahead of it. So a couple of things that we will notice also on a daily basis when doing business there is that there's a strong centralized government, and it's increasing. It's increasing its grip on the economy and on business sectors, even though organizing exhibitions is hardly, let's say, high technology or a sensitive technology or whatever. But still, we often hear when we talk to partners or clients, oh yeah, we have to hear what Beijing says about it. Okay, well, what's Beijing got to do with organizing an exhibition? Yeah, it's sensitive. All right, okay. So that's increasing. And we have to, you'll all encounter that when you come to China, that things appear to be sensitive. And then you have to slow down a little bit. Especially, arrogant Dutch people think, okay, let's just do it and go for it. And all, oh, no. Listen carefully to your counterparts, because what they say it in an indirect manner. We're not so used to that in Holland, but listen carefully, because things can be sensitive. And if you ignore that, oh boy, that hurts. So strong centralized government with impact on the economy and on all of your business. China sets goals. I mean, people do that. Individuals do that. Companies do that. Local, provincial, and central governments set goals, and they go for it. When you ask a 24-year-old in China, what are your plans? Then they say, okay, first I will graduate from university, then I'll work for an international company for 2 years, then I'll go to Tsinghua University again, and then I'll do this. They have a plan. When I ask my 24-year-old daughter, what's your plan? They say, oh, I plan to go to Ibiza next week. All right, okay, as long as you pay by yourself, which she doesn't. So there's a clear difference. The Chinese are extremely focused. They have a goal and they go for it, and nothing stops them. And I think I remarked yesterday in one of my comments that they have I have to be very careful, sensitive, respectful, but they have different, let's say, scruples and morals sometimes in wanting to achieve the goal. They just go for it, sometimes at a cost that we would not want to take the risk for. But they say the goal is there, go for it, and then they go like this, which gets them there. We all know how China has progressed, and sometimes we may frown about all kinds of practices, political and also cultural and business-wise about China. But try to stand in their shoes and try to understand where they're coming from and what they never want again. Then you understand a little bit. I'm critical about many things in China, sure, but I also am understanding of the background. So also here, everybody will have some views about China, but then step back and say, okay, how would I do it? Well, don't even want to do it because it's a tough job to manage that country and that economy. And by and large, they're doing a great job. But then again, with different morals, different scruples than many elsewhere. Of course, with all the doom and gloom about the economy yesterday, we should take that seriously. But of course, China, in the end, it is becoming the biggest economy in the world. There's no doubt about it. With 1.2 billion people, somebody said yesterday maybe down to 1 billion people. I don't know. I think actually the actual number is higher than 1.2 because there are many undocumented people. But anyway, it's large, and they work hard. They're focused, and they'll get there with ups and downs, and as long as they keep the country together, of course. As long as the Communist Party, you may think about it what you want, keeps the country together, which is not a given, but as long as things remain more or less stable and the economy keeps more or less running at an okay level, it will not be anymore as what it used to be 10, 15 years ago, then they'll keep the country together and they'll get there. Assume they'll get there. They don't give up easily. And doing business in China generally is promoted. Go ahead, make money, get rich. It's okay. It's all okay. As long as you don't interfere with politics, well, that's fine. People are focused anyway. Companies are focused on their company goal, and they go for it. Of course, we all know that the pandemic slowed the country down. Economic recovery, as we learned yesterday, and also I noticed myself with my own eyes in daily life when I was there 2 weeks ago, that economic recovery is very moderate. And that's probably still an understatement or overstatement. Anyway, it is a bit less than moderate, perhaps. There's also something, it was said this morning about same old, same old. No, I think China has changed since the pandemic. I think there's more tension and nervousness in the society. People are not used. I mean, most people in China now were born in the booming years, at the start of the booming years. And it's no longer booming like it was. The sky is not the limit anymore. And I think people are noticing. They are like sort of surprised and confused. Hey, why don't we have double-digit growth anymore? Why are there not jobs everywhere for me and stuff like that? You can see in the retail, there's shops closing that you think, wow, I've never seen that before. So I think things have changed, besides the nationalism, which is heavily promoted by the government for whatever reasons. And I think that's trickling down on the population as well. So I do think China is changing, and it doesn't make working and doing business in China any easier. Still saying, don't do it. Absolutely not. We're committed. More about that later. I'm taking too much time. I realize that. Yeah, so the Chinese work hard and they see the future as an opportunity. Very different from many in Europe, where we think that the future is a threat. And the Chinese see the future as an opportunity. And despite all the concerns we may have about China, every time when I'm there, I'm enthusiastic. I'm made enthusiastic about the energy there. People just go for it. They go for it, and that's very exciting. But mind you, they go twice as fast as we do, so we have to run to keep up. And there's often discussion and conflict about different speeds between our office and the Amsterdam office, because they go much faster. They want quick. And we say, oh, slowly, piano. Let's think about it more carefully. No, let's just do it. So there are, cultural issues there. Quality is sometimes an issue. From that respect, China is very different from Japan. Japan is all about quality. Everything is okay. It can be expensive. It can take long as the quality is high. We must have good quality. And the Chinese see quality as one of the factors to take into account, but not necessarily the only one or the most important one. Of course, there are variations to that theme. Definitely efficiency. We heard that yesterday on a macro level, but also on a daily basis in doing business. You sometimes think, okay, guys, you act fast, but still so many people get involved in those quick decisions. It could be half less of the people and still take the same decision. So efficiency sometimes also down on the work floor is something that I think China can still improve on. Although yesterday it was said that the efficiency levels are getting relatively high, I think in practical reality, efficiency can still be improved. Another thing that I have remarked, not just in the short time at RAI, but in the other years that I lived in Hong Kong and in Beijing before, is that creativity and taking responsibility have a different value generally than in Europe and in America. So people, the society is hierarchical. And that was also remarked this morning. Companies are pretty hierarchical. If our managing director in our office says we should make the print of that brochure not brown but red, whether it's house style or not, and our marketing manager can complain about it, but it will be brown because he says so. And then you accept the authority of the older person or the person who's in charge. And that sometimes is stifling creativity somewhat. And I can only imagine what happens if people in China are more encouraged to use their creativity unpunished, and are encouraged to take more responsibility. Then, you know, then there's no way to keep up China if this will happen. Okay, so what happened with RAI is we used to work with a partner, but we have decided to from this year on, for all our exhibitions that we organize in China, about 10, to do it all by ourselves. That's why we're growing the office like crazy. Legal reasons prevent me from saying anything about that previous period. Yeah, long story, but I will not bore you with that. Well, it will not be boring, but I will not go into that. But we have decided to go for our own office. We had like 5 people 5 years ago, and now we're up to 35 people. So that's quite a decision. And again, to Bernardo's comments, quite a risk as well. So it's been said many times, and it's almost like a cliche, but do your homework. Yeah. Not just go for a week on a holiday to Beijing and then think you know Beijing or think that you know China, because it's not. And many of us are veterans. We know how right this is. Do your homework. Get to know the country. Get to know the people also. Not just the legislation and whatever. Also get to know the people. Try to understand their way of thinking, their way of working. The business culture, which is extremely different from what many of us are used to in Europe or in the US. On a daily basis, you're surprised about different customs in just negotiating, in talking to your staff or talking to your customers. How different it is just unbelievable. If we would have to delve into this, we need to organize another conference. But we have chosen to go for our own office. You know, when you go for a partner, that's very understandable, especially when you come into the country the first time. But choosing the right partner is extremely difficult. I think it applies to every country, by the way, not just China. But the transparency, the information in China is sometimes not what you expect it to be. Sometimes the information that you get about your prospective partner later appears to be not entirely correct, for all kinds of reasons. And also your partner may, despite the kanbeis and toasting on mutual beneficial cooperation forever, may have different objectives, or may have objectives that you don't know about. Yeah, it was mentioned yesterday and today as well. You need to build trust. You need to have a partner that you can trust 1000%. Well, that's great, but the trust only works as long as it goes well. Partners change in attitude, in mentality, and sometimes for external circumstances. So yeah, trust is great. And if you find some partner, and it's possible, and some have never any complaint about it, but trust is great as long as it works. And I would still advise everybody to, of course, build trust, build relationship, extremely important, but also safeguard yourself against when still, despite your trust, things are going wrong. So still write it up in solid contracts for whatever they're worth and all that. Do your checking, keep regular contact, check the facts and not just the blue eyes or whatever color they are of your Chinese business partner. Trust is great, but don't be naive. I mean, I think this also applies everywhere around the world and not just China. Different way of working. Contracts, it says here, are not really leading. Contracts are usually the beginning of all the changes instead of the end of the negotiation. So you think you've done your work and your lawyer has looked at the contract and signed and again come back, and then 1 week later you find that things are going very differently from what you expected it to happen. Well, that's China. And like I mentioned earlier, transparency and also communication, both in terms of language and cultural communication, can be an issue. So be aware. It's enjoy it first of all, and get into it. You're in somebody else's home, so live by the rules of somebody else's home, but still be alert. With your own office, you have a branding advantage, especially if you listen to Simon more carefully than we did. then you can protect your IP and stuff like that. There's a transparency advantage. It's likely that from your own office and your own people, you get more and more updated and more factual information than you may get from a partner who, like I said, may have different objectives. There's arguably more control over quality because you have more direct view on what's happening on the ground. And of course, you can also implement a shared corporate philosophy. But then again, always a shared philosophy with Chinese characteristics. That's just the way it is. Your office in China will never be your office in another city next to where you are based. An office in China will always be very different. And you just have to accept that. And some think, oh my God, guys, this is not what we should do. But they do it nevertheless. And you think, okay, shall we stop it? Shall we try to steer it? Or shall we let them do it their way? And that's not always easy. That's a thing you ask yourself almost on a daily basis. But they're not stupid. They know the market much better than we all do. Even with probably 1,000 years of experience in China in this room alone, the locals know the situation much better. And it was mentioned, and so true it is. Before you get into China, even when you are in China, continuously make sure that you're prepared for the unknown and the unexpected and do your homework. Of course, I'm originally from the marketing research industry, so please go to solid market researchers to get the facts above water, do desk research yourself, talk to people, talk to peers, it was mentioned in the morning, talk to fellow, maybe even your competitors who you meet at a conference, whatever. Talk to everybody about their experience in China. It's very insightful. And definitely seek accountancy and financial related consultancy. That's very important for all the reasons that are related to money and to finance streams flows. Make sure that you're well prepared legally. Again, you may trust your partner and lots of handshakes and stuff like that, but make sure that you cover yourself legally as much as you can, because we especially after also Simon's talk this morning, we all know that the legal system and especially IP protection, it works differently in China, especially in the daily practice. Maybe on a high level, when Simon compares EU and China, I think, oh, it's not so different. But on the ground, things happen that you think, oh, they shouldn't, but they do. So be prepared legally. Definitely go to your embassy or consulate general. Of course, go to EU SME. Where are you guys? Well done. I must really say, honestly, that they provide very, very good support. Very, not just to get rid of you, but really give you really good information, connect you to really good people, really excellent. And the same applies to like the chambers of commerce that I think are doing excellent work, and you'd be really stupid not to use that. Use them, abuse them as much as you can, because they're sitting up on a minefield of, not on a mine, on a gold pot of information, and they have lots of useful contacts. So use them. I'll send you an invoice later for this commercial for EU SME. And also, I think I mentioned before, understand the influence of geopolitics, because above us, things are going on that indirectly affects your business, whether you're in the exhibition industry or whether you try to sell toothpaste to China, whatever, but it will affect your relationship with your customers. Even though your customers don't really enjoy the influence of politics either, but we're all influenced by the geopolitics. As Europe, it may not be so bad right now comparatively, because China and the US are not as warm friends anymore as they used to be. And that may be to the advantage of EU. I don't know, but there's lots of things going on, of course. And of course, understand the key government policies in your field, whatever your area is. Right now, a key economic policy in China has to do with the carbon emissions reduction, which is extremely important. Almost every major decision in China must fit into that. If a company no matter how big or small. Once you take a decision that goes against that policy, forget it. They'll get a phone call one day from senior official in Shanghai government policy bureau. Maybe you should stop doing that initiative. Okay, well, okay. So that's, you know, the policies in your field. Communication, okay. I'm so sorry, it takes too long. There's so much to say about China. Cultural and technical. I mean, arguably, this is the most important slide because communication is so different. Understand the importance of WeChat. I think most of you know it. Online, everybody in China knows it, because without WeChat, you're dead. You cannot live in China without WeChat. You cannot do your marketing in China without WeChat. People don't read emails in China. Send them a WeChat. We had a huge issue with a customer who didn't pay the bills, even after we sent them reminders by email like 6 times. Yeah, but we never read email. You should send us a new WeChat. Ah, yeah, we could have known that. You know, so WeChat, I mean, it's down to earth, very practical. It's extremely important. And it's not just like the Chinese version of WhatsApp. It's much more than that. Life revolves around WeChat. Language issues, of course. The great firewall in China, which makes collaboration on the same documents very difficult. So I'm working on this PowerPoint. I must send it to my colleague in China. He will make some changes and send it back, because it's very difficult to collaborate on the same document because of the great firewall and all kinds of limitations. It's something we all experience, and it slows things down, and sometimes it's just annoying. And get used to indirectness in the Chinese communication. Especially for a Dutch person, that's very difficult. We are so direct and we love it. And the Chinese are so indirect, and you have to really listen carefully. I mentioned it earlier. Listen carefully to what they really mean to say. And well, that's something I tell myself every day. And every day I think, okay, I should have listened better. It was mentioned before, yes doesn't always mean yes. It can mean no. So in all kinds of aspects of life and business in China, that's very important. I'll speed up a little bit. I don't know where I am time-wise, probably way over time. I'm very over time. Sorry. Okay. Building. Okay. Last one. Then now I'll just quit. Sorry. Is networking. Get to know people, and eat and drink with your business partners. Don't expect, especially for Northern Europeans, to go there and have a business discussion and then print out the contract and sign it. That's not going to work. You have to wine and dine and be together and get drunk together, unfortunately, for a long time before you actually can get the trust and the relationship whereby your customer grants you the privilege of doing business. Very different. Okay, yeah, I really have to hurry up. Sorry about that. Pricing, don't go in too low with your price, because Chinese respect serious prices. They think, oh, if it's expensive, it must be good. But then, of course, they will ask for a discount. So build it into your high price that you offer initially. Plans change all the time. So be flexible. It's never going to be what you think it's going to be after what you agreed on yesterday. Finance issues, many late payments, many has been discussed before. So set clear long goals. Success needs time. It is not, you cannot go to China quickly. It needs a long-term commitment, not just 1 or 2 years, long-term, and be prepared to sit it out. Manage your expectations. We know it's not going to be easy. Stay away from politics and offer genuine respect, and make sure that you deserve their respect back. That's very important. Okay, a million other things, but I'll quit. Thank you. Oh yeah, one more thing. Alipay. Most of you know it. If you don't know what Alipay is, before you go there, make sure it's on your mobile. Make sure your credit card is linked to Alipay, because it's even more important than WeChat. Without Alipay, you're dead. Okay?
Thank you. Thank you. China boss. Thank you very much. So yeah, we are a bit beyond, but yeah, we welcome now Mr. Roland Brouwer, who is the regional director for Europe of the firm People. Welcome, and yes.
Yeah, that's me. Okay, great. I guess we're running a little bit out of time, so I'll do my best to speed up a little bit. And of course, we later on also have the panel discussion. So we can also go a little bit more in into my subject as well. Actually, I don't talk from a company perspective of a Dutch or a European SME doing business in China. I talk about from two angles. From one angle is my current position as Regional Director Europe for Corporate and International Relations for a company called BSO. BSO is an HR firm. I will explain a little bit about BSO later. I'm based in Amsterdam. It's Singapore headquartered, but we have 5 offices in China, and therefore, of course, it's very relevant as we serve many European clients in China and also many Chinese clients here in Europe. But also my previous job is very relevant. About 10 years ago, I moved to China. I came back last year, and for these about 10 years, I used to work for the Netherlands government in trade and investment promotion. I started in the city of Wuhan. Yeah, everybody knows Wuhan. 10 years ago, nobody knew Wuhan. So it was more about promoting actually Wuhan than Dutch business. Went to Qingdao, which was more active in terms of doing international business. And the last 5 years I spent in Shanghai. And there my role was much more helping Chinese companies investing into Europe. So from both aspects, I have some experience. So very brief, one slide about our company. It's called BSO. Headquartered, as I said, in Singapore. We have 40 offices around the world, 5 offices in China, biggest one being in Shanghai with about 200 people. We also have offices in Europe, expanding quickly. We now have offices in the Netherlands, in Spain, Germany, UK, of course not EU, and Turkey. And also opening offices momentarily in Poland, Denmark, France, Italy, Belgium. So yeah, rapidly expanding in Europe. And what we do is HR services and HR software. But also in China, we are like more or less a one-stop shop for companies, a full range of services. So we also provide company setup services, accountancy services, etc. Yeah, my talk is mostly about HR, human resources. Yeah, and human resources, you can see it on this slide. It's a huge factor when companies are internationalizing. One of the main challenges that they will have in terms of recruitment, but also in terms of administration and management. So companies need to be really well prepared on this topic of HR. This, of course, we mostly covered yesterday. Trend is slightly down in China. I'm not very negative about China. I think it will stabilize. Of course, days like 10 years ago, 20 years ago, they will not come back. That will be impossible. But I still see quite stable growth. The other challenge is a much bigger challenge, I think. The sheet that you see here on the right, the chart, that's the enormous decrease of the population. And the decrease of the population will have, of course, a huge impact on China's economy. Labor shortages in the future you can think of, and also economic pressure in China. When I lived in China, like a lot of young people, they complained or told me the situation, how they have to take care of their family, because due to the one-child politics, 2 families get married, so one couple has to take care of 4 people. Now the Chinese government stimulates to have up to 3 children. So can you imagine if you have to take care of 4 parents and 3 children for one couple, that is almost impossible. So the stress is also going to increase in China, of course, in the coming period. I started in China in 2013, and all my Chinese colleagues, they always received a very nice salary increase, 10%, even when I arrived, 13%. Huge steps. And at that time in Europe, we just came out of the financial crisis, and my salary was frozen. So I didn't get, I got 0% extra. And you see my Chinese colleagues, of course, the salary increasing and really approaching also Western standards. And that, of course, went quite stably until 2021. And only in 2022, you saw a major drop. The average salary increase was only 3.7%. And you can imagine that is also quite a shock, of course, for Chinese. They're used to every year a salary increase of 8%, and all of a sudden it's 3.7% in average. So you can imagine what that does to Chinese employees. They feel also the pressure here, financial pressure. I skip now to the hiring options in China. There are different ways of hiring people in China. I will not go into too much detail, but in general, there are a couple of ways how you can hire staff. Let me start actually with the second one, direct hiring after company incorporation. That means a WOFE. I think you're all familiar with a WOFE. If you have a WOFE, you can directly employ staff. There might be some other options. Maybe you want to first have a look at the market, see how things develop, and therefore you can have, for example, an employer of record EOR service, which means that you can hire somebody in China, but that person is not under your payroll. Under a representative office, you can also not directly hire local staff. That also has to go through an intermediate company. And of course, you can hire through maybe a joint venture partner or other partners that you have. EOR, you might not be too familiar with it. It's also something that our company does, but it offers a very good solution for companies that just started in China and that are really exploring the market. So it's mostly a temporary solution for companies that enter the Chinese market. So the company, if you have a company here in Belgium, you want to hire somebody in China, but you don't have the entity yet, or you don't want to hire somebody under your entity yet, there is the EOR solution in which you completely manage your staff that you hire. You also hire your own staff, you recruit them, you manage them, but the whole administrative part lies with the so-called EOR. So they sign a contract with the employment contract with the staff member. This I think maybe bring some relief as well. So SME hiring practices in China are not that different from other countries in the world. So that is, of course, something that's positive. There are differences here and there, but also the Chinese, and especially because now the economic situation is not as before. So a lot of Chinese are also looking more and more for different things like stability, about training opportunities, about work-life balance. So you see that a lot of the things that are important here in Europe more and more also become very important for Chinese staff as well. These are just some of the current trends that we've been seeing that maybe you've been hearing about. I think you should know about them. 996, very popular. That means work from 9 o'clock in the morning till 9 o'clock in the evening, 6 days a week. You must not think that every Chinese works like that and would like to work like that. A couple of cities that are very famous for it. Shenzhen, of course, is one of these cities. From my own experience, I visited Tencent 2 years ago, And yeah, at 10 o'clock, there was a huge rush out of the office, 10 o'clock in the evening. So why is everybody leaving at 10? Because after 10, they can take the taxis for free. They can claim their taxi amount. So everybody stayed in the office until 10 o'clock in the evening. So it was promoted by Tencent to stay until 10 o'clock. And then they could claim their expenses for the taxis. So there ahead, the 996 is actually just promoted. But there's also kind of a counter counter movement is laying flat. Actually, people that don't want to do anything, but of course, that's not for everybody. That's for the ones, for example, in Shanghai, that maybe have a rich background. They might have some real estate or some business involvement where they receive just enough money for and can lead a very flat laying, very relaxing life. So there's kind of a counter movement on the 996. But also here you see how the work-life balance is becoming more important. After COVID, of course, remote working is also becoming a topic in China. Not everybody's offering that, but a lot of people are looking for that. The gig economy, of course, a lot of people working many hours in jobs, temporary jobs, quite often, not well contracted. These kinds of jobs too. And the last picture we've heard all about it is the unemployment rate under young graduates. It was about 20%, but now the Chinese government stopped reporting, so we don't know exactly how high that is. Yeah, the recruitment challenges in China, intense competition. 20 years ago, if you, I'm not sure if there are people that are experienced in opening an office or a factory 20 years ago or even longer. I heard stories that people were lining in front of your gate to get a job. People were very eager to work for you. Now that's of course not the case anymore. The Chinese have much more opportunities to work for private Chinese companies, for state-owned enterprises, also becoming more interesting and more popular again, working for the Chinese government, working for large international multinational companies. So yeah, the SMEs are not necessarily on top on what kind of companies the Chinese would like to work for. It's also not like there's no Chinese that would like to work for a European or for an SME, but that group has shrunken quite a lot. Rapidly evolving skills, of course, are required. IT, of course, related skills. Talent shortages also in certain fields. We don't see that only in China. We see that worldwide, of course. But like technical jobs with a lot of experience. These are the people that can easily find jobs. And if you are looking for such a person, you will face a lot of competition. Regions are also very different. A lot of people still in China tend to go to the big cities. You should think of Shanghai, Beijing, Shenzhen, Hangzhou, Guangzhou, maybe Chengdu. So you see there are the talents. If you go away, if you're somewhere else, there's a lot less talent available for your company. The hukou system, that is the household registration, can also cause some problems, especially for the workers, more low-paid workers. It's very difficult for them to register in their city. And that can also have some complications if you're hiring people without a hukou in a certain city. For example, their children are not allowed to go to the public schools there. So there's also something you should consider. Language barriers, I think that is, still in China, finding English speakers can still be a challenge, although in the big cities, professionals, of course, speak English, but at a lower level or second or third tier cities, it's a lot less common. Changing demographics, I already mentioned, and then cultural differences and business etiquette that was also mentioned. One thing I would like to mention here, if you're doing a job interview, that works completely different than a job interview in from my experience in the Netherlands. If you have a job interview in China, it's really question answer. So the company asks, and the person wanting the job, the applicant, is the one that is answering. It's quite formal, it's quite stiff, and also respectful, but you cannot mostly there's not a lively conversation that comes from these kinds of meetings with Chinese. What can foreign SMEs do to stand out? There are definitely some things that make European SMEs or SMEs in general unique. Develop a strong brand. That is very important. Before you even go to the Chinese market, you can do already some promotion. Maybe people already know your product. You can have a WeChat account, of course, as mentioned as well. Promote your company and make a feeling like, okay, this is a company that I want to work for. Of course, for some health-related, food-related products, it's a lot easier than for industrial products. And also communicate what your advantages are and what make you unique, and why are you a great place to work for. European SMEs they can stand out in diversity, in more flexibility in remote working, work-life balance. And that's also what many Chinese now are looking for as well. So if you can stand out in these factors, then maybe you have advantage on the Chinese labor market. How do you recruit people? I will go through here shortly. There are a lot of job portals, recruitment agencies, of course, that you can use, but there are also many other platforms. WeChat is of course already mentioned, but chambers, reach out to them as well. Every European country has a chamber in China, or almost every country. So go to them, talk to them. They might have some links or some references as well. Investment agencies, if you invest in Shanghai, there's Invest Shanghai, reach out to them, and they might also have suggestions too. LinkedIn is something that's not widely used. It was quite widely used in China, but due to quite some restrictions, now from my colleagues in China, I see that they hardly ever open it anymore. What brings success? Internal referral. Very clearly in China, a lot of people end up jobs by introductions. So introduction is extremely important. So if you have some people in China, just ask them, hey, do you know somebody that would like to work for our company? And that might really work. Hunter, talent pool, recruitment portals also works. Online channel does not work. For me, actually, recruitment portals did not work at all, but it was quite because we were quite looking for specific people with skills, good English background, and that were not the people that applied through these recruitment portals. But if you're more looking for technical workers, engineers, then recruitment portals could be a good option as well. Something about the cultural norms in the workplace in China, also touched upon already quite some times. It's flexible. Make sure that you have a lot of informal meetings where you meet with your staff. Not always meet in a big meeting room, because if you meet in a big meeting room, the Chinese staff tend to be a bit quiet, a bit careful. Will not speak out. Of course, there are also methods to let them get a bit more involved. But also have more informal meetings. Here it says, for example, important decisions are made over meals. That's also with staff. So provide these kinds of methods to really get connected to your staff. The summary is not completely towards what I've discussed today, but I would like to close off with something that Jorge Woodke would always say, had a previous president of the EU CCC. He said that in China, China is like a fitness club for European companies that drives us to be faster and better. And I think that was also previously mentioned as well. If you want to be active in China, you have to go full force and make sure that you are on top of it and give it all. That's it from my side. I hope I was a bit on time. Yeah.
Thank you for this excellent presentation for speaker. Yeah. No, that's fine. You are close to make mess. No, thank you for this excellent presentation. You indeed covered many key issues that European SMEs face. Now we have the last presentation. Mr. Timo Loso, I hope I didn't get it wrong, but chairman of the Finland-China Business Association. Very welcome. Thank
you. So good afternoon. So I have the definitely best position in the whole seminar to be the last speaker after 2 days of excellent presentation, huge amount of content, and really like different views. If China is the place where to go or not to go, or is it difficult to go? It's not difficult to go. What to do? What not to do? Remember this, remember that, and a long list of good advices. So how to summarize this from that kind of trade association perspective that is really like helping the SME companies. So my first touch to China was something like 2001. I used to work for Nokia Corporation at that time in global positions, and we had like a meeting in Hong Kong. And I was then like having that kind of extra day off, and I had that kind of a tourist tour. We went one hill, and then I remember then said, okay, there's a small city called Shenzhen, and the most important export of that are ladies who are then coming to work in the Hong Kong. 15 years later, I was establishing our WOFI in Shenzhen. So a lot has happened during these years, and I have to say that most of the buildings were not there at that time when I saw those small buildings in 2001. I'm working as a CEO of IP law firm Colster. We have an anniversary of 150 years next year, and been working with China for some time, handing over 5,500 assignments throughout the years. So some experience from the IPR side, but I won't focus on that now because we have had an excellent presentation by Simon in this morning. Rather than that, I like to focus on the role of the business associations that are helping the SME companies in the country. So I'm in the chairman of Finland-China Trade Association that is working in Finland. We have a history since 1985. And like in many business associations, the purpose is that kind of put together the information regarding China, the practices, building the linkages, and we only have like a part-time director general, and the rest of us is like a voluntary based. So we have our own businesses, but what makes us together is there's an interest, like a business interest to China. Our members are only those companies who are going toward China or are operating in China at the moment. So we are considering the services based on the life cycle of the company, considering the China business. If they are on the position to enter in the market, if they have started the operations, or if they are like working in China for China. The board of the association of course, it's selected every year, and there are like a few best practice, if you say so. And it's just like I'm thinking that the board should include sort of like a representative companies from different kind of organizations who are working inside, small ones, big ones, SMEs, different industries, and taking care of these different life cycle where they are in. So a few years about background, how we have ended up today's situation. So Finland was the first Western country who made that kind of deal, like a trade deal with China, and we celebrated that last year. That was done in 70 years ago. So we have a long history, and believe or not, still every now and then when we are visiting the Chinese companies, they know the history that, okay, Finland was the first one who recognized the current China and then made like a trade agreement. So they have long memory. Luckily, in this case, it means that a good memory. Like many European countries, the big corporations went to China first. Pulp and paper, pretty much that kind of what Finland and Sweden has done in the 80s, 90s. Then we have like a huge boost when Nokia started really like a boom in their business with the mobile phones. And of course, China was quickly one of the largest market. And with that company, there were a lot of other smaller companies who were like a subcontractor for Nokia in different ways. Like mentioned earlier today, so you have somebody in Europe who is going there, you go on their tail and you learn about the market. There have been that kind of Connect Corporation is making the second largest on making the elevators and escalators in the world. Of course, China has been the most important market for some time because of the construction boom. For SMEs, it has been a great place of learning what the China is. So pretty much that kind of knowledge sharing, and people who have like a experience and lived in China now are spreading to other companies as well. And the last 10, 15 years, the games industry and ICT companies have started the China adventures. So you can see that the company size has been, more going toward SMEs all the time. And now we can say that, even SMEs can go China without having that kind of big guy next to them. During the COVID, we are experiencing the same situation like then all European companies with all the lockdowns and everything. And the same for us, nobody left China during those years. Actually, the companies were making quite nice profits in 2020 and 2021. So there are like a few best practices, if you say so, what we have learned. So one thing is that there are extremely many China players in all of the countries. EU, China, wherever. So from an SME company perspective, it's quite difficult to find with whom you are contacting with. And actually, we needed to make just before the COVID that kind of a review in the Finnish market that, okay, who are those organizations that you can trust and who are really like having the information, who are those like wannabe consultants. And actually, there were quite many Chinese individuals who established their own associations and started to sell their services. So we made that kind of a clear, role description. So the Business Finland, that is like a government organization promoting the export. So they are providing that kind of general information on the China and the industries. They have resources for doing that. So our association is then like helping the companies when they have decided that, hey, China is the way to go. So in the preparation phase, in the market entry, and then the mature phases when they are in. And then there's for the cultural and general information on the China, there's like a Finland-China association who is taking care of those. So we are solely keeping our focus on the business area. And in addition to this, we have like a network in the main Chinese cities like Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, called FinCham network. And these are the people who are working in the companies and are on the site in China. So advice, make clear who are the guys, what is the difference of your services compared to the others. Then what to offer, what the SMEs are asking from us. And like today, we have had a good list of different information sources. So there's no way that we as an association can provide this kind of high quality information that we have seen today. So yes, let's use this one that is available. And the companies are quite eager to use this. Also the industry reports and market analysis. Then our role as a trade association is putting people together and getting companies to share that kind of tacit knowledge, hints and experiences, rumors, what is not true, what is not, and then the latest news on the market. So what we cannot find on the reports and analysis is what's happening today in the market, or what kind of hints you can see what will happen in the future. And these are of course quite different in the comparing the different provinces of China. So obviously when you have selected, okay, this is the place where you're heading, then getting more contacts on those. And of course the training sessions. So typically these are the topic like HR that we just had a good a presentation by Roland. Then it's about the IP issues, like Simon mentioning this morning. Then it's like a financial and funding and how to move the money between the China and your head office. These are the mostly common questions that we are getting from the SMEs. And then it could be like a very specific topics. It could be for the like an industry, like a maritime, or as an example, where you can have that kind of special session. It's interesting, but one of the very good feedback that we are getting from the SMEs are the meetings when we are having with the Chinese embassy in Finland. So to build the companies together to the embassy people, and especially the commercial counselor, who is then providing more information and answering the questions that the SMEs are having. These are mostly regarded about the common policies and taking care of some industries like food and beverages and so forth. And then one of the annual event that we have is that when the Finnish ambassador is coming back home once a year. So we have that kind of a long meeting, and our members are then meeting, and that's that kind of a discussion under the Chatham rules, house rules, so that it's that kind of doors closed, and then we are discussing, and people are really appreciating this kind of direct discussion and sharing the knowledge and hints. And the last but not least, of course, these kind of sessions that we are today having here that are organized by EU SME Centre or Europe-China Business Association and so forth. And then there will be a moment that something goes wrong. Even each of these cases are different. What we can see very common is that for the SME companies who don't have that kind of own organization, they are calling to the embassy and say to the embassy, can you call to the minister because I have this problem here in China? So could you please do it fast? And then it's the first discussion is, hey, the embassy is not handling this kind of thing. So if that is regarding the trade, you make contact to the trade association, and then digging into the problems of what has been done. Most of the cases, unfortunately, are those things that you should have been doing as part of your homework, like IP related. Your trademark has been stolen. You have made a bad contract. You are using the non-disclosure agreement. Great, but you have taken template from the net and not really understood what was saying there. So quite simple stuff. And then it's about what are the alternatives to fix the problem. There are also that kind of parent-related issues, and then that kind of normal competition issues. So that especially some of the SMEs, they have not really up to the tough competition that they can see in China. So they are saying, okay, it's unreasonable that some local company is doing something. But hey, that's the way. You know, you're a highly competitive market, so it's fast. All the competitors are utilizing all the possibilities they can. And then, of course, like mentioned here, it's almost in the same list that I had in previous slides, who can help. Just on one example, then where this kind of local knowledge is extremely important. So the case where the Finnish company has made agreement with the Chinese to buy some products. Obviously, you know, money has paid first without having any guarantee. And then the material was coming, but totally in different quality and different stuff that was ordered. So what to do? You know, money is there already, so not too much to be done. The lawyers are getting that kind of stuck. There's no any that kind of collection capability for the money. And then taking this kind of local ideas of using the social point system, increasing the motivation of this kind of party, that okay, if they are following these rules, they might maybe like an impact regarding the points of the company. That helped, but it's not set anywhere. You just need to know how these systems are working. So how to keep then yourself as an update what's cooking. And the one beauty of this kind of associations and networks that we have here is that we are having very strong link between ourselves and also with the government. Like in our case in Finland, we are part of that kind of a government China network where we have all different ministries and government bodies, and we are like sharing our update situation, what's happening in China. What is interesting from the trade perspective? So quite often the SMEs are working with their like a sector minister, like agriculture ministry, of the cases when they are going to China, without knowing all the China-related stuff. So it's also the place where we are like educating then the different government organization about the practices from the trade perspective, what's happening here. Then also we have in our board meeting the representatives for the foreign ministry and the trade ministry, just like bringing so that we know what's cooking now between the trade relations between EU and the China. So, and these are extremely important for our like a large company members. But of course, there are some good ideas for the SMEs as well. So it's just like having this kind of ongoing discussion going on. And then, of course, the unofficial networks where the individual contacts are extremely important. And then you utilize all that kind of different occasions that happen. One example that I would like to hear was that in 1 month ago, it was the Vice Director General of BSO China Trade and Companion Office visiting Finland with the delegation. So we had an opportunity of having session with this delegation, and also we collected the questions from our members, the Finnish companies. And now we are having that kind of discussion. So they're answering for the questions and we can see things moving forward. So when having these opportunities, take those, utilize those, and build the discussion in a way so that all the parties can save their face. So I would like to conclude this short presentation on the 3 things that we are now that are on our table. The first of all is the motivation. So after COVID, there's not been too much business traveling between Europe and China. So it means that what you cannot see is not in your mind, is that kind of saying. So how we can create the motivation and realism in the expectations toward the China for SMEs, when they have the motivation, how we can help them to reach their targets and have a successful journey to the market. And then the third one is that, this media is all the time so interested about the China. And we have seen this also, that kind of one challenge with the company, so that they are sort of like too conservative probably of taking the risk just because of the challenge with media. With these summarizing points, I wish to have more flights between the Europe and China, more business traveling, people seeing each other, learning more, not only European going to China, but also the Chinese coming to Europe. And that's the way how we can really build the business together. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing insights on how business support organizations work. We are a bit over time, so I don't think we're going to take any questions, but of course, you're very welcome to interact with the speakers directly or maybe with us, and then we will make the introduction. That's pretty much it, I guess. Again, as yesterday, we would really appreciate if you could fill this. I don't know how it's going to work, but maybe I would like to maybe invite you to share something. Just 2 more minutes. I know.
I'll stick to the time. Well, as I started this meeting yesterday morning, and I will close it down today as a leading partner in the consortium of the EU SME Centre, and it's been a great pleasure to have you all here. We have been going through a very tough and tight schedule, so sometimes we've been overstretching, but I hope it has been informative, and you have all the references that will be shared, business cards during the breaks, so continue to do so. Communication and sharing experiences is the key to success. So I wish you all returning back to your countries or respective businesses. And come and visit us in China. I live and work in Beijing. So anytime you come to Beijing, don't forget to call me up. Thank you.